in comeback fashion once again. 5-4 the final score in 10 innings here in Game 3.
Back then, I was a little bit younger and excitable, and I shouted a little too much, and I lost my voice like right away. I had nothing left after I called the strikeout. There was nothing left. I couldn't get through anything else after that. So I hate hearing it, but I was probably the only person in the press box making noise. So I'm sure down the hall they were probably like, "Who is this guy?" But I remember Michael Kirk being up there and coming in and giving me a big hug, and I remember getting messages from people listening back in York, including Eric Menzer and Don Kane and all kinds of people from back home, Peter Kirk, and you could feel that not only was the celebration happening there in Bridgeport, but you could feel it back in York too. One thing that I prided myself on early when I was breaking in and learning and getting experience and everything, and I had the best training ground possible, which was actually on the station that we're on now. And at the time we had a sister station over in Lancaster County, so I would do a lot of my work over there, which was where there was more opportunity. Because at the time, Ron and Wayne were doing the high school games in York. I was doing the games over in Lancaster County. So most of my work was over there, other than York College basketball. But as a student at York, what better training ground? And I never said no to any opportunity, even if, and to me that was important. Even if it was a sport that I didn't know much about, I looked at it as an opportunity to grow professionally and have another thing on the resume. And for a while, and I lost count, but I was really proud of how many games have I done, and I used that in my interview letter with the Revs and everything. I've done this many games in this sport and everything. But I mean, there were games that I was literally holding a cell phone. That's how I was calling the audio back to the station, and I was walking the sideline of like a high school girls lacrosse game over in Lancaster County. And there was one game, we did a girls soccer game at E-Town, and it was a deluge, and I called the game from the driver's seat of my car. We were parked in and my wife now, Kristen, girlfriend at the time, she would make all these trips with me. She was my support system, and whether it was bringing energy drinks or just having somebody to share the experience with, and she was with me every step of the way. So we're sitting in the car behind the goal or behind the end zone with the wipers on, calling this soccer game in a downpour back to the station. But just experiences like that weren't the most comfortable, they weren't the most perfect, but it forced me to learn how to adapt and to be well-rounded. And some of these sports I had to learn a little bit about. I think, if I remember right, before a lacrosse game, I actually went up to one of the coaches at York College and asked him about terminology, and if this happens and if this happens, what is this called, what is that called, so I would sound like I knew what I was talking about. But experiences like that, I felt like I could kind of roll with the punches a little bit, and that was really big for my professional growth. We did some volleyball, some softball. When the York Tour Typhoon were playing at the Blast in Emmetsville, I did a few of those games. That was kind of my tryout on WOYK as a college student, was to do one of those. And I remember one day we wrapped up a lacrosse game in Lancaster County, and I was calling in the post-game show on cell phone while we were starting to drive to the Blast to do the York Typhoon hockey game that night. So there were some crazy memories from those days. But in addition to that, if we weren't on radio over at York College, I would do the public address announcing for whatever sport. I mean, every field hockey game and soccer and you name it. I worked really closely with Scott Geis all those years and still do, and very grateful for the opportunities that they gave me. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I told Scott that, and I told my professors that, and they were awesome at trying to put me in position to get experience and help me in that regards. They were very supportive of that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to students, but I had a professor who allowed me to miss a couple classes and make up the work because we were doing a Millersville baseball game over on the Lancaster station, and that was, I really wanted to do that one because they were playing it at Clipper Magazine Stadium, and I wanted the chance to do a game in a pro stadium, and that was really cool. A year before the Revs came into existence, so that was neat. And my first paid assignment on WOYK was when the Northeastern baseball team won the state title, and I did that game, and I remember going up there it was played in Harrisburg. Wayne McCullough, I hadn't met him yet. That was the first time I met him, and he was my color analyst for the game, and we had a great time. But that was the first paid assignment on the station, and that was a really big moment for me because I knew a lot of people were listening, and I wanted to get it right and do a good job. And there were a couple specific games that I remember that were kind of really important to my growth and my confidence in my ability to do a game. There was another one that was it was on York College's campus station. It was women's basketball. They were in a playoff game at Catholic University, and none of the other students wanted to or were able to make the trip. And I was dying to do the game. I wanted to do the game so badly. That was like my big thing in college. I was obsessed with doing as many games as I could because I loved it and I wanted to get better at it. And I don't know, I'm kind of an obsessive maniac, I guess. And that's the way I was with this job. So in order to do the game, I had to go do it by myself and set up the equipment and everything. And I had only done a couple games before that, but that was a huge moment for me to go down there and to do a game solo and to do it fairly well, I guess, for being 18 or 19 or whatever I was. And that was a big moment confidence-wise.